Hey Skylar, it's Dr. Scott. I have some feedback for you on your essay 2, your visual analysis draft. Just a quick reminder of what I'm looking for in the revision is a thesis statement that's clear, that's focused. You've got something that's debatable about 2 flood wall murals. Also looking to see that if you're using details to support your argument. So in your paragraphs you should have details that are supporting the argument, but then you're also kind of explaining how those details support the argument. I'm also looking at organization and transitions, use of a couple paraphrases, and then MLA formatting, integrating a visual and a paragraph without any B verbs. I think with where you're at right now with this assignment, I think just kind of focusing on the thesis statement and the supporting details is it's what you need at this point. There might be next week you might want to check in with me again to make sure that you're on the right track with organization, transitions, and some of the other criteria. But with the, as far as like the thesis statement right now, I assumed this was, well, I had a hard time kind of figuring it out actually where the thesis statement was, and I guess that's okay to like write a draft and then to kind of figure it out. But I had a hard time pinning down like a sentence that kind of summarized what the overall paper was about, and I think that's fine. There are some that it's fine at this point. For the revision, you need a clear thesis statement that shows me where the paper is going to go. If I was to guess, the paper is about pride and how the murals convey a sense of pride in the work that people do, and I think that that's awesome. I think that that's a really interesting argument. The problem that I'm running into is that I don't know how some of the paragraphs help support that. So like I read this paragraph here, and it reads like it just kind of summarizes the mural. And then I read this paragraph here, and it also feels like it's kind of summarizing the mural. We get into some of the later paragraphs, and I do see that idea about pride, and it's coming up with the For Freedom mural. Like it seems like you're really kind of getting into that right in here. So the overall paper needs some kind of focus. It needs something debatable. I don't see anything arguable up in here with these paragraphs about the progress in medicine, but I do see something that's debatable down here. So one, you need a thesis statement that kind of encapsulates both murals, and pride, you make that argument later on. And if you want to use some of these details, that's great. But you'll kind of need to explain how they're working as pride, and you'll probably need first sentences that help you kind of convey that. The medical mural and the For Freedom mural both convey pride through the use of, and then you'll have to kind of figure that out, like how you're going to kind of group that by the actions that they depict. I mean, okay, maybe. I don't know how that's going to work with the For Freedom mural. But you'll need to kind of break down the different ways that the murals get that idea of pride across. Maybe the way that not necessarily actions, but maybe the way that the people doing that work or doing that labor are represented in the murals, of the way that they're characterized. I think that you could have something there. So we need a thesis statement. We need an argument that covers both of the murals. We need to think about how that idea of pride is being conveyed, and that's through the use of, like, how do they get that idea of pride across? You should have both murals in your paragraphs. Right now I just kind of see the first half of the paper is about the Waller or the medical mural, and then the second half is about the For Freedom mural. I think that's kind of got you into this rut where you're kind of just summarizing the first mural, and then the second mural you seem to have a little bit more of an argument about, but still there's also some summary that's going on there. So each paragraph like addresses one of the ways that they get pride across. And then once you kind of set that up, you know where the argument's going, you know where the paragraphs are going to go. When you do have details in there, make sure that you're explaining how those details convey that sense of pride. So that's really where I see the essay at right now. I have kind of down here, and I know that this is a tough assignment, and I know that you're just trying to get some ideas down on the page, and that's totally fine. You'll need to cut some of these and to make sure that you have kind of paragraphs that are covering both of the murals. So I'm fine with a draft that just has ideas down on the page. To kind of summarize what needs to happen between now and the revision, you need to clarify the paper's argument. Are we talking about pride all the way through? That's fine. You can complicate that a little bit and say that maybe one mural gets the idea of pride in people's work. They get that idea across more effectively than the other. That's one option, but you need to make sure that that idea of pride is all the way through the paper. You need to organize paragraphs around how both murals get that idea across, that idea of pride or whatever you end up writing about. It can be, again, one mural does a better job conveying pride through how they characterize people that do different kinds of work. Maybe it's one mural does a better job of showing the actions of that work. You can make the argument that the Waller Street mural or the Waller mural does a better job of showing that labor, whereas the For Freedom mural doesn't really kind of show that labor. It's more symbolic. You need to explain how the details support the paper's overall argument. So once you have paragraphs set up around how the murals get an idea across, you should have some details in the paragraph, and kind of like I talked about in class on Thursday, you need to explain how the details that you use, how do they support the paper's overall thesis statement. And finally, you might want to check in with me or make sure that you're paying attention to, make sure that you're paying attention to these other items: organization, paraphrases, visuals, the use of be verbs, MLA formatting. So there's a lot of work to do, but it sounds like you've written your way to an interesting argument, something that you could build an entire paper around. All right, Skylar, that's it for now. If you have questions, let me know.